trees are really impressive as to what they can do. They seem to be very still and very stable, but they aren't. There's a lot of dynamics going on. What's happening with climate change is, yes, there's more CO2, and the trees are able to take that up, but you're having larger changes in drought and rainfall events. With this ongoing pattern of increased drought, it doesn't matter how much carbon is available. If the trees don't have water, they can't transpire and they won't be able to take up that CO2 anymore. There may be a tipping point.
For more than 5 decades now, we've been developing incredible research capacity here, multidisciplinary, intensive, long-term, high-tech research. We have a group of 180 people working intensively and importantly connecting to our colleagues, collaborating scientists from all over the world. This network for forest research is then extending on a world basis to connect other sites and other partners in other countries as well as throughout the United States to understand how these connected systems work and how they're responding to global change.
Here in the forest geoplot at SERC. This is where I conduct a lot of research on tree growth and how the trees are responding to climate change.
Trees are growing faster due to a combination of factors. The growing season length is getting longer, temperature changes over time, an increased concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, and also an increased amount of rainfall.
We measure these seedlings every year to try to track how they're surviving and what the forest might look like in the future.
We're here at the site of my long-term research on forests. In this area right here, over the 33 years of our study, we have seen changes. The question is the behavior that we currently see in this forest unusual? But knowing something about the leaves themselves tells you a lot about what the forest is doing, how the forest changes over time. Because the leaves absorb the carbon dioxide, they release water and transpiration, they reduce the wind speed, they take up the light, photosynthesis. You can't talk about changes if you don't know the way things behave naturally.
The TEMPEST project is simulating storm surge and flooding events. We are trucking in 80,000 gallons of fresh water to simulate a large storm event. We expect that the trees are not going to do very well when they're exposed to large flooding events like this. This would be more of like a sea level rise in storm events if you had a big body of water pushing up into the forests as a product of climate change.
We're out here today on our campus that we call BiodiversiTREE. This is a large-scale, long-term ecosystem restoration experiment. And what we're trying to do is really come at the idea of whether or not we can use planted forests as a nature-based solution to climate change. The climate is changing fairly rapidly, and so we're looking at the effects of that climate change on forest ecosystems, but the second part that we're looking at is whether or not we can mitigate that climate change.
We're trying to figure out how different tree species influence soil carbon storage, whether that carbon is emitted back into the atmosphere or whether it can stay in the soil longer. We're starting to understand how carbon gets into soils as well as how long it stays in soil and whether that varies by tree species.
One of the things that we're seeing with climate change is increased extreme events, increased invasions, new plants moving in, new forest pests, for example, and then tracking those changes takes a lot of time. And so when you put the trees in place, those changes occur against the backdrop of these trees growing up in this new environment. And so by taking this long-term perspective, we can actually track those changes and see what the effects are on the forest environment.
Our good name, our commitment to integrity and expertise and excellence, and our long-term forest research has tremendous impact around the world.